Thank you for your interest in the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship Program. My name is Craig Harmelin. I am one of the study abroad advisors here at UC Merced. One of my passions is trying to keep study abroad affordable and accessible through scholarships. So let's begin. So first of all, just to introduce the scholarship, the Gilman program is really under the U.S. Department of State, and under that, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. Part of the mission, part of the purpose of the scholarship is to build mutual understanding between the U.S. and countries around the world, as well as keeping study abroad accessible to students without the financial means historically of being able to participate. So some of the highlights, you can kind of get a sense of how much this scholarship aligns with many of our current demographics here at UC Merced, whether it's first-generation college students, the fact that we are a more rural institution, or that we essentially send students to a diverse array of programs and destinations. So first, let's talk about a little bit around the scholarship, the program itself, and eligibility for the program. Basic eligibility requirements for students from our campus are that you need to be a U.S. citizen or U.S. national, an undergraduate student. You need to be a Pell Grant recipient, and you can see that in your financial aid award letter. The program must be credit-bearing. That's nearly all of our programs, and in a country with a travel advisory level 1 or level 2. The Gilman McCain Scholarship, this is a little less common on our campus, but this would be available to our students who have veterans connections. That's not quite so many on our campus, but we do have a handful. Some of the eligibility requirements are going to be overlapping, but the main thing is that students need to be eligible for any type of Title IV federal financial aid, so not necessarily just the Pell Grant in this case. So the scholarships are worth up to $5,000, and while there are a number of terms eligible, the primary terms that our students are receiving awards for are summer, semester, and year, semester, fall, or spring. Essentially, the longer a student goes abroad, usually the higher odds they have of landing a scholarship. In addition to the core scholarship, there is the Critical Need Language Award. There are some targeted languages, and if students are focusing on one of these languages intensively throughout their program, that might be taking a class for, say, 4 units throughout the semester, students can apply for and potentially receive an additional $3,000 and essentially have access to have the proficiency tested upon completion of the program. So these are 16 critical languages as deemed so by the Department of Defense. In addition to the critical language supplement, there's also a STEM supplement for students who are pursuing research while abroad to help them cover their costs. This is worth up to $1,000. In addition to receiving the scholarship, the program is more than just a scholarship. It's also access to a wide alumni network with thousands of alumni, as well as another key benefit that I think is a strong fit for many of our students with their interests, and that is non-competitive eligibility. This is essentially the fast track to positions beyond, say, entry-level positions in areas like the Department of State, Department of Defense, maybe one of the intelligence communities. And there are a few national scholarships that have overlapping benefits here. So what does the application look like? Essentially, the main part that you'll be interested in, that you'll be focusing on, is the student application with essentially an online information form, usually a trio of essays, but that might be supplemented by 1 or 2 essays if you're pursuing either critical needs language or the STEM supplement, unofficial transcripts at the time of application, and then you would select your advisor. So our advising on our campus is based on geography. You would select your advisor based on who advises for that country. You would also select your financial aid advisor on our campus. That's Leticia Diaz. she should be the only option that you can find. And then usually after you apply, the advisor has a week to certify your application. And we get notifications when students submit their applications, and we are working in the background to get those applications certified. So essay number 1 is your statement of purpose. Think of this as a way to introduce yourself. We really encourage you to, once you introduce yourself, to focus on your academic, professional, and personal goals, usually in that order, but also challenges that you have met or that you need to overcome, how you've maybe built resilience or strength or discipline as you go through the study abroad application process, in addition to the scholarship application process. Some questions that you can ask yourself are, how will this program help you to achieve your future academic or professional goals? How did you choose this particular program? So we're looking at how intentional are you about this program choice, because oftentimes if you are intentional about where you're going based on your academics, then you have a better sense of how good this program is for your academic and sometimes professional goals. Preparation for academic success is also important for the scholarship application. And then what sort of skills, what sort of knowledge, background, experience have you built up that will mean that you are more likely to succeed while studying abroad? Obviously, study abroad is a learning experience, but at the same time, students should have a little bit of preparation mentally and otherwise in preparation for studying abroad. Essay number 2, this is the community impact essay. Actually, there are 2 of them. The first one is about building mutual understanding. So this is about where you talk about what it means to be a U.S. citizen or even a global citizen, but how do you show yourself to be a good U.S. citizen to individuals who've never necessarily gotten to meet or gotten to know a U.S. citizen. So you should also be looking at how will you engage culturally with your host culture and seek meaningful interactions with individuals, whether it's your classmates, your roommates, your host family, etc. Some questions that you might ask yourself are, how will you best represent the U.S. and share your background? Keep in mind that part of this scholarship is trying to show the diversity of students who are going abroad and the diverse nature of the United States. And so sometimes this is really about sharing a new perspective, shedding new light on what it means to be an American, especially to those who've never met an American. But also, what opportunities will you seek to engage in the local culture and build meaningful connections? So that might be engaging in cultural activities, shows, performances, local art, whatever the case may be. The third essay, this is the second community impact essay. This one's about the impact on the community where you are now when you get back. So how will you essentially pay it forward? How will you share your experience to build on what you've done abroad or what you will have done abroad in order to enhance your own community? And that community can be here, but it can also be back where you grew up if that's not local to Merced. So some of the things that you will be focusing on is, what does it mean to be a citizen diplomat? How are you looking at giving back in order to inspire your peers, your social networks, maybe your family, the high school where you grew up, the community where you're from, or it could be your clubs and organizations here on campus. So how can you inspire and how can you influence those around you to seek out international education and international learning opportunities? And part of this is to actually design a plan of action. And we encourage you to reach out to the study abroad advisors in order to seek both a feasible but also a meaningful or an impactful plan, because sometimes students aim too high and sometimes they aim too low, and we really want to help students kind of hit that sweet spot and be more successful on this front. Some questions that you might ask yourself as you go through this is, what what your project will be and how will it increase awareness. So what sort of impact, think about this in terms of intentionality with the project that you intend to pursue and how it will impact your peers. How will you integrate this, the impact of your study abroad experience into the project? Sometimes that's a little bit hard to imagine because you don't know what your study abroad experience will be like, but dream big. But at the same time, consider what will be feasible as you're returning from abroad. As a project, you're usually looking at about a 6-month window to complete your project after you return. And then if you need to collaborate with departments, maybe it's the study abroad office, my office, or maybe it's the School of Social Sciences, Humanities, and Arts because you're reaching out to an academic club. Think about who you need to reach out to. Maybe it's your high school guidance counselor to be able to talk at your former high school. Think about the connections that you need to make in order for this project to be successful. Then this is the fourth essay. It's a supplemental essay, but it's exclusively for those students who are seeking the Critical Need Language Award. This, again, is for those 16 languages that were marked before, where you're targeting one of those critical languages for national security purposes. Again, you want to verify that it's a critical need language, that it is one of the languages predominantly spoken in your host country. There are some countries where you might find multiple languages, but even if your language of instruction is in English, is there a way that you can focus on that target language? How does the language or language study relate to your academic or career goals? Sometimes that's easier for career, but if you have academic goals around language, be intentional about that because they want to see that you have a commitment to the language. And then what motivations do you have for improving proficiency? I would say this goes not only for your time abroad, but also upon return. The STEM Supplemental Award essay, this is the newest supplemental award for the Gilman, but this is for students who are pursuing STEM research. So this only applies to a handful of students, but if that is one of your ambitions, I highly encourage you to look into this award. This might to help offset some of those costs around labs and fees and maybe transportation or extra housing that you need in order to complete a supplemental research project related to a STEM field, either your major or maybe an allied field. So let's talk a little bit about selection. These are the categories or the criteria that they're looking for when it comes to selection for the Gilman program. So again, the impact of the program and particularly the destination, I would say, on your study abroad and your study abroad experience on your career and academic trajectories. So essentially, why did you choose Australia if you chose Australia when you might have been able to take similar coursework in, say, Singapore? Why did you focus on Western Europe instead of Eastern Europe? If you have strong academic or professional reasons, this is a good thing to be thinking about. Why are those reasons so important to you? Think about your community impact, both abroad and when you return. So that's really the focus of those two essays, especially. Think about how strong of an impact those will have. Also, you want to spend some time talking about how you've become academically prepared, whether that's about creating good habits, setting limits, or maybe academic preparation for maybe advanced coursework. And then if you are focusing on STEM or critical need language, what is your commitment? What does your dedication look like? Are you set on learning that language or pursuing research no matter what? So let's focus a little bit on deadlines and timeline, because this can be a little bit confusing just because of the nature of the application for Gilman. So essentially, students going abroad have potentially two options to apply, essentially an early bird deadline and a just-in-time deadline, you can think about it, or a core deadline. So we're looking right now at the March 2025 deadline, which is coming up at the beginning of next month. And so this would be the last chance deadline for students preparing to study abroad in programs starting in summer or fall of 2025. But it also serves as an early bird registration or early bird application deadline for students hoping to apply for programs starting in the winter or spring of 2026. And those students applying early also have the chance, in case they are unsuccessful in this application cycle, to reapply again in October and have a second chance at application. Just as this may be the second chance application in March for students who might have originally applied in October for what would have then been the early bird application deadline for the Gilman for students participating in summer or fall of 2025. So the application is open already. It opened a few weeks ago. The deadline for this cycle will be the 6th of March. That is 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. And then it will close, or I should say the advisor certification deadline. Again, we receive notifications kind of behind the scenes. We have a week to certify those applications. Some additional tips and resources. Here I'm just going to load a few quotes from students and even, I believe, an advisor quote. So think about your story. What connects your past, present, and future, and how does this scholarship tie in, especially if the scholarship is really looking at diversifying who's studying abroad and just making sure that there's a strong representation of U.S. college students participating and receiving the award. Does anything about your background or your academics and your goals really tie into some of those goals? And can you tell a compelling story around your background? We encourage you to start the application as early as possible. We still have a few weeks out at the time of this recording, but start the application as early as possible to improve your odds. Your follow-on project, this is really about you paying it forward and spreading the word. So not everybody who studies abroad will get the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship, but sometimes that's the motivation, that's the encouragement that students need to tip the scales to pursue study abroad. Sometimes students need to make it work with a scholarship like this, but sometimes just the possibility is enough to get students interested. One of the things that we get to see as advisors is how much students are transformed, how much study abroad develops and shapes students. And so this is one of the things that really encourages me is the perspective that students gain, especially if they're intentional and thoughtful as they go through the study abroad process, to become more globally oriented and globally minded citizens. If you are interested in the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship, International Scholarship, there are a few other awards that have overlapping goals and aims, as well as some overlapping benefits, especially fringe benefits. So the Critical Language Scholarship is focusing on many of those critical needs languages, although the list is highly expanded. Not highly expanded. It's focusing on most of the same critical languages. However, this is a summer program. The applications usually due in the fall, and it's for students who are pursuing one of these languages intensively. It's pretty much an all-inclusive program in terms of cost, except for your passport, but it's for students who are really making a serious effort at a target language like Hindi or Russian or perhaps Urdu or Japanese. The Fulbright U.S. Student Program. Fulbright's actually a rather large program and a lot of different options, but Fulbright kind of has a lot of funding available for students who are pretty intentional and kind of have a long view of their international education arc and can plan ahead. The Bourne Scholarships. This is also a scholarship that's focusing on critical languages. That list is greatly expanded. That application is typically due in January. So if we're looking at January of 2026, that would be for students studying abroad during the 2026-27 academic year. All of these have some overlapping benefits, such as the non-competitive eligibility to get into some civil service positions. The Gilman program is very active on social media, so you should be able to find a lot of posts, especially on Instagram, but they have a strong presence across X, Facebook, and YouTube as well. You're welcome to contact Gilman. They tend to respond to students within a business day. I've found them to be highly responsive of all of the programs that I work with among the most. But I also want to share our contact information. The Study Abroad office is actually part of the Office of International Affairs, and there you can find our contact information where you can reach us anytime that you need. The Study Abroad website we try to keep as updated as possible with updated programs, offering scholarships and more. But I thank you for listening, for watching this video, and I appreciate your time. And best of luck to you.